rent with an option to buy or rent to own real estate is very important because it's kind of like what I call the bridge in real estate. So no matter what happens, and I've been through different market downturns, I can share with you, thank you guys for joining, I can share with you that the rent with an option to buy and rent to own has always been that bridge. So it's like, think of it as if a person's on one side of a shore and they're trying to get to the other side. Well, rent with an option to buy or rent to own real estate has always been that bridge in real estate, and it applies to you whether or not you're a first-time buyer, you haven't bought before, or you've previously purchased and bought properties before, because things happen in life. Sometimes some of us are in a place where we're looking to buy and we're not quite ready or in a position, whether it's credit-wise or whether it's we don't have the down payment. And then there are others of us who've already bought, gone through the cycle, and then either went through a process where we either lost the property or we went through a situation where we got into a foreclosure or pre-foreclosure and our credit got hit. And so now we're at a place where we have to now, either after the property is either sold off or we don't have it any longer, we need to now look for somewhere else to live. And in those situations, your credit is not that good. So what do you do in that type of circumstance where you are in a position where you're coming off owning a house, your credit is not that good, but you still need somewhere to live? And everywhere you turn to, they're looking at scenarios where they want 800 credit score, they want all these things that you don't qualify for. So the rent with an option to buy or rent to own, I highly recommend for everyone to have some knowledge of. So today I'm going to share with you 3 key strategies and tips for rent to own, because like I said, this applies to you whether you've been in pre-foreclosure, foreclosure, whether you're looking to consolidate, which I've shared many people will be on this trajectory. We have not really opened up yet. I don't know what part of the country you're watching this from, but I'll share with you that we still have a moratorium in place here. So we really don't know the truth of the real estate market here. It will only tell when the courts open up and when things start to move forward again, and we see that the eviction freeze has been lifted, we see that the foreclosure freeze has been lifted, is when we'll be able to know really what's going on with the real estate market. And when that happens, all hell is going to break loose, in my opinion, because then you'll really be able to see, who really needs to find a place to move, who has no more time, who's losing the house, or who's been affected by their tenants not paying them, and now they're losing the property to foreclosure. It's just a mess. And so with the rent with an option to buy, for you to actually have and be equipped with the strategies and the knowledge of how to deal, if you find yourself in either side of the aisle, you can use this to your advantage. So this applies to us if we've been in a pre-foreclosure and previously owned a home. If we are looking to consolidate where we're pooling our families together and we're going to go ahead and get a house, let's say you're paying rent now, you're paying $1,400, and you have a sister or brother across town paying more, $2,000. Well, what you can do is you can consolidate, and the two of you actually pool together and get a house. And many families are doing this now. A lot of our clients are doing that, where they are, they're going ahead and opting for this because they're looking to try to see if they can not only save costs, take advantage of, what's happening with the mortgage market, but also consolidate in the sense that they have a better situation as far as their living. They're able to take a property, splice it up so that they have their individual spaces, and they have a backyard, they have a driveway, they have all these things that they won't have with apartment renting, and these restrictions that they have with smaller units. So as we see, homes with pools are selling at a record pace because people are really preparing themselves to be able to be more home-based. And so having a home that you can actually call your own and renting it with the option to purchase it at a later time is very, very ideal. And this is really represents also a start for many people. Many people are going to be restarting, as we know, and so this is like a fresh opportunity for you to restart. The other thing too that I've seen too is that there's a lot of relocation happening. I've said before and I shared before, many people are leaving New York and coming to our area, like New Jersey, Connecticut. Some of our agents and brokers that I work with in other states that are in the tri-state area, they're talking about surges in people leaving, specifically Queens. We have a lot of people, a large client base from Queens, and Brooklyn actually, that are coming and moving towards where we are, simply because the coronavirus, ravaged New York. Other places in the country are starting to see it, what we've gone through, but we've gone through really a lot here in New York and New Jersey area. So many of them are leaving, coming to this area, and many of them are looking and taking advantage of the rent to own option, because when they're coming in, when you relocate, you're looking to kind of get into an area and you don't really know fully what the area is like. So sometimes the way you test an area is by doing a rent to own, is by doing a rent with an option to buy, because instead of you taking and signing on a mortgage and going into where you're anchored into the house, you now own this property, and then your only way out is to sell it. You're able to get into the process not only faster, because it's faster when you're doing a rent to own, but also you're able to get into it with the responsibility or the guise of going in as an owner, having full house to yourself, and then at the same time testing it, so to speak. Testing if you like the school system for your children, testing if you like the area, testing if it's easy as far as location and it's centrally located where you can get to everything for shopping, groceries, going to the supermarket, and also if maybe some of you may have elderly parents, and also like amenities, things like being able to walk down the street and just have a stroll, nice and quiet, low crime. So a good way to actually test an area is by doing a rent to own. So I'm going to share and start with the first one I want to talk to you about, is that rent to own is always based on terms. So it's a term-based proposal. It's similar. It's like you have different types of properties, and this applies to any property really that you can apply it to. I'm specifically going to highlight single-family residential here, because most times it makes sense, specifically when you are in a position like what we are now, in the kind of climate and place that we're now. It's always good to have a single-family residence as a highlight. I wouldn't go for a rent with an option to buy, let's say with a co-op. Condo maybe, but not a co-op. I wouldn't do that. I would do it with a single-family residential property, which is what we specialize in here. So the first thing that we always look at, and the first key and strategy, is to look at the purchase price. So a lot of times when you go to do a rent with an option to buy, there's a pre-proposed purchase price that may be extended and put forth. And again, with the concept of rent with an option to buy, you're going in and you're looking to rent this place with the option to exercise your right to buy it at a later date. Now, I've been doing this for a long time, and I know that there are different criteria that people have put in place generally when it comes to the rent with the option to buy, such as you renting the property with the option to buy it, and the goal, or I guess the understanding, is that you will put down 3 to 7%, which will be considered your down payment for the property. We always call this, the legal term for it is called an option payment. And so you're going to go and see a property, you may be interested in moving forward with it, but then you're going to be putting down 3 to 7%. Now, some people may say, well, if I have 3 to 7% down, why would I go and do a rent with an option to buy? Why won't I just buy the property? And you're right. And so that's why I said it's a term-based solution, so to speak, or a term-based proposal, because ideally when you're purchasing the property, or the purchase price, which is the first key strategy and tip that I want to talk about, sometimes you can go into a rent with an option to buy, and then you can set a price at that time. The only issue with that is that you don't know what the market's going to do, good or bad. So if you go into a house and the person says, okay, well, we're going to do a rent with an option to buy, and we're going to start the price at $100,000. So you're going to buy the property, or you're going to sign a contract or a lease for $100,000. Well, what happens in a situation where if your option to buy expires in maybe a year or so, and then at that time the market goes down and you lose, where you're going to be now buying a property that you signed the contract for $100,000, but now it's worth only $85,000, and vice versa. The same goes for the other side, the seller, where the person can actually get into an agreement with you and then basically start the process, and then a year later the property will be worth $140,000, $130,000, which is a good thing for you, because then you lock the property in with an equity appreciation that's happened over the course of the time that you've been there. So a purchase price and option payment, I would actually say that you need guidance on that, because when you go in, the concept is there, but you want to make sure that you either put a clause in the contract to exercise the predetermined purchase price to be decided later. You can start out with a range, but don't lock in a specific number, because we don't know if the market is going to be good or bad. So keep yourself fluid in that. The second thing with the option payment, also the quote unquote down payment, is that the way that you keep yourself out of issues with rent with an option to buy is keep it like a straight lease. Standard on standard, most municipalities, your security deposit for any rental that you're going to do is a month and a half. So what you could do is a month and a half to 2 months to be able to have that considered your option payment. So yeah, you're within the scope. And again, as I go more on this topic, I can share details with you on why exactly you want that to be, both on if you're watching this and you're considering doing a rent with an option to buy for someone else, meaning that you're a landlord or a seller and you're considering that, and also if you are a buyer or a tenant, I can share with you why that's very, very important that you stay within that range. That's on average what is acceptable for a security deposit. So the second tip and the second key strategy that I want to touch on with you is the rental price. So a lot of times when you go into it, many people assume that a rent with an option to buy should be exorbitantly higher than what a regular rental will be. Now I will say this, that depending on the type of property, which in particular I'm talking about single family residential, you will be paying market rate. So whatever the market rate would be, like let's say for example, an easy way for you to understand what the market rate would be is this is just a gauge, it's not an exact. We can give you more of an exact of what the market rate would be for a rental price, but I will give you an idea of, you can go to Zillow and then plug in, let's say, the property address, and when you do that, you'll be able to see two things. You'll see one, a Zestimate, or an average proposed Zillow estimate of what the property is worth, and also a rental amount that Zillow will say that they believe that the rental market is at this range. There are other tools and other resources and websites that you can get the exact. Redfin is another one that you can check to be able to get a gauge on how much you should be paying for rent. But rental price is very important because sometimes it factors in taking a portion of it and applying it towards the purchase price. Now, I don't advise this right now in this current climate. In the past, people have used that, and they've actually used a portion. So let's say a person's rental is $1,000. They will take the $1,000 and then they would actually consider a monthly credit. And so they would take $1,000, the $1,000, take $100, and then they will count it towards that. This can be dicey, specifically if things don't work out. So you have to be careful with that monthly credit. It can go either way. It can go bad for the seller or the landlord, and it can go bad for the buyer or the tenant. So you want to be cautious when it comes to that monthly credit. You want to make sure that with the rental price, you just keep it strictly the rental amount. So if the rental has to be market rate, let it be market rate. As far as credits and as far as exercising what can be applied towards the down payment, I would not apply that, or I would not do that monthly. There is a way to structure it though within the lease that may help, and so that I can share with you all in detail as I go, because I'm going to be talking more about this particular topic. And then the third strategy that I want to highlight to you when it comes to rent with an option to buy, rent to own, would be time. Time is very important because all of this is predicated on time. Remember, a rent with an option to buy, rent to own, is an opportunity for someone to be able to get into home ownership who at that moment in time, for whatever reason, they're not ready. So what it does is allows you to be able to go into getting into a property, and let's say for example you're in the process of developing or working on your credit, and as we know, credit takes time to work on, and so you need to move, or you need to be relocated, or you want to be in the space, and you have the opportunity to be in the space. So it's a win for the seller and the landlord because they're able to have you in there occupying space while in the process of preparing yourself to take over ownership from them and purchase the property from them. And so in that scenario, when you go to propose or write up the terms of the contract, well, then time is going to be key, because then how do you structure it? Do you as a seller give them a year? Do you give them a month to month? Do you give them 2 years? And then also you as a buyer, you may have a situation, and I highly recommend this for you as a buyer tenant. If if you are going to be going into a rent with an option to buy, you also want to have the option of subleasing. And so you make that a term where you say, look, I would like to take this place, but I also like to sublease. And the reason why that is because there's many benefits to having that clause in there, and the capability of the landlord giving you an option to sublease. But I'm saying that to say that when it comes to time, time factors in both for the seller and also for the buyer. So for example, a seller's timeline may be that they may be willing to give the buyer maybe 2 years, for example. But then the buyer may decide to sublease, and in that sublease, they may give the person that they're subleasing to a month to month. So this is a strategy that we use also to help people who need to be able to make money off real estate. Whether you're an investor or you have to propose something to a client that's in a jam or distress situation and they need help in that moment, and they need to be able to figure out a way how to make income. Or if you yourself are in a situation of distress and foreclosure and you need to figure out a way how to make money off of the real estate, you can actually use some of these strategies with the rent to own and rent with an option to buy to be able to help you generate income and generate money now while you're in that process of trying to save your home or beat the foreclosure. So with timing, what I recommend is that you try to keep everything around a year. And if you are in the position to, and you guys can come to terms where you can do a month to month, 1 year, then I would do that, because then what it does is that it keeps everything balanced. In this situation, there's been a history and a stigma regarding rent to own, and sometimes people look at it as a scam or adversely something that's wrong, or something that one person benefits and the other one doesn't. And to be honest with you, if it's done properly, it's actually a win-win. People have gone out and pitched rent-to-own programs, and there've been different scenarios. Again, it all boils down to the terms. If you're doing things properly and the terms are fair and they're actually vetted and they're reviewed and the one party is able to get what they need. There are people who are in a situation where they are living out of state and they have homes in a particular. I have clients now. We have clients out of state and their homes are here in Bergen County, and it's sitting vacant. It's just there. Then there's no occupancy. We have to make sure that the grass is cut, things are done so they don't get fined from the city, and it's just not a good thing for the house to just be sitting like that, specifically during the winter months when you have a higher propensity for the pipes to burst, just issues. So to have rental income coming in the duration where they're out of state and it may be a probate situation, they're not going to hold on to the property anyway, and they decide, since this is an option for me to generate income now, I can just go ahead and absorb this and take this, and then what we can do is we can exercise that later. Some people are not in the position or ready to sell right away, and they would like to generate some income from it until that happens, or they're waiting to see what may happen in the future for them, for their job, if they're going to come off furlough, if they're going to be employed, or their job is going to relocate them based on all the things that have happened. So this is a good option for both sides, provided that it's done properly. So I will say that if you're interested in doing a rent to own or rent with an option to buy, you want to learn more about it, I would like to be able to share more with you on that. We do have people that are credit repair experts. They can help you to start to work on your credit to get you positioned so that you can actually purchase your home. I do believe that, and I've said this on my YouTube channel, if you guys have ever, I don't know if you've heard of my YouTube channel, is Ask Rinde, and we have a lot of valuable content on there, but I've said this in a video I did about maybe a year and a half ago, and I believe that 30-year fixed interest rates will go down to near 2% and probably even below. That's something that I highly, highly believe. And as we've seen, the interest rates have been going into levels and territories that has shocked a lot of people. I believe this week it was 3.075. And so as interest rates go down, which I don't think that we're going to have any change with that until 2022, maybe 2022, 2023, you're in a very good position, because by you actually starting this process now, you're into a house you're renting with the option to buy. So you're starting the process where you're renting with the option to exercise your purchase option later on, and at the same time you are going to be in range to be able to get a good interest rate. So if you're prepared properly with the best credit repair and the best credit hacks that we can give you, then you're in a position where you can actually then be in that process and having your credit positioned so that you can not only take advantage of a very good interest rate, which will be unheard of, because most people, that's why you see the refinance going through the roof, because many people who have been in 5%, 4%, 4.5%, 6% interest rates, they're trying to refinance their properties to be able to calm down. And also too, that represents an opportunity for you as well, because there are some homeowners that can't refinance. Refinance is not just like a voila. Refinances are based on your equity position in the property, if you have PMI, what your credit position is. Many things go into refinancing. So some of them can't refinance, and they'll do a rent with an option to buy scenario. The other thing too is that we also have mortgage people that can work with you. So for example, if you need to prepare, not only on the one hand you have the credit person helping you with credit, but you also have a mortgage person who's vetting you. So the mortgage person is actually looking over what the credit person, the credit expert is doing with you to say, yes, by you doing this, then we can get you this projected program. One great key tip and takeaway that I want to give you for rent with an option to buy is the fact that although your option to exercise is at a predetermined date and you have up to that date, well, the key is up to. So that means that you can, once you get into the rent with an option to buy, you can exercise that option at any time. So that's the two benefits of rent with an option to buy. You're able to move in immediately. You don't have to wait, go through the whole process. As you guys know, I'm an agent here in New Jersey, and sometimes, real estate transactions can take, on average, they take about 60 days, and then much longer, depending on title issues, different scenarios that can come up out of the blue. Sometimes, things happen adversely, whether it's natural circumstances like what we're dealing with the coronavirus, or life happens. Sometimes people pass away during the process. You guys have known, I've shared the story about my property that I bought. When I was purchasing it, the seller passed away, and it turned into a probate situation. It took me over a year to close on my property, the house that I have now. And so having these two factors, the credit person, the mortgage person, looking at what overviewing and watching over you as you go through the process is very good, because you're being headed and pushed towards a direction of success, in that sense where you're not only going to build up your credit to be able to have the best option and opportunity to take advantage of the interest rate that we have currently going on in the mortgage market, but also you can do FHA, where you're able to put down only 3%, and so you can exercise that later on, and then that will blend in with the predetermined down payment, so to speak, or option payment that you've precast with the seller and the landlord in order to go ahead and blend the two to exercise your option when it's time for you to purchase. And then the other thing that I would like to share, and the last thing, is that we also have attorneys. So we have attorneys that we can have or refer you to that will be able to help look over things, because many times when you have these agreements, sometimes people do these agreements and they're not really, obviously, if you've never done a rent with an option to buy before, you've never done a rent to own, you really don't know what you're dealing with. And so it's always good to basically, once the terms are determined, run the contract and lease by an attorney. Even if you have to pay them a small fee, then do that, just so that you're looking at and protecting yourself. And obviously for us, we'll definitely help you, because we want to make sure that everyone is covered legally and everything is done properly. And one last thing I want to share regarding also the benefits of this is the fact that there's a program called NACA, and it's actually a down payment assistance program. So in essence, this is something that will help you get more detailed information on, that may be able to position you to be able to get down payment assistance. So not only are you going into the property and you're preparing yourself with your credit and everything, but it may be very well that you'll get a lot of down payment assistance towards your purchase, where you don't have to come up with all that money to be able to plunk down on the property. So again, this is just an overview to give you three key strategies and 3 key tips for the benefits of rent with an option to buy, rent to own. I feel like this is going to become more prevalent and more needed, especially as markets open up and as the truth about what's going on in the real estate market comes to light once the court opens up. I mean, right now we're on a moratorium, everything is closed down. There's still a freeze. We just got an extension. We just heard that they're extending things all the way till late September. So imagine, I mean, if you're a landlord and you're depending on the mortgage payments, I mean the rental payments to be able to pay your mortgage, and you can't evict or you can't do anything until September, what are you going to do in between now and then? Or if you are a tenant, I mean, obviously with the tenancy, there's an eviction freeze, but more so on the issue of the landlord, the people who have in that position, if you are obligated to start making your mortgage payments now, in between now and the time that can take place, and even after the courts open up, there will be a big backlog. So that's the one thing that we're all watching. I mean, all myself, my counterparts, everyone locally, we're looking to see what type of backlog. I can tell you from working with the courts for years, there's going to be a major backlog. It's going to put things off till next year. So, meaning that if they lift the freeze of eviction, they lift the moratorium on foreclosures, the backlog that's been created by these months will push actual, activity, and not only activity, but conclusive activity, where if they're going to make any conclusive determination in court through the judges, through actions that the plaintiff may take against you as a defendant, those things will actually come to fruition next year. And that's on all courts. Like, it doesn't just have to do with landlord tenancy or real estate. That has to do with, legal cases, trials, etc., etc. So that's really, in a nutshell. I wanted to just share a little tip on that. If you are interested in an option to buy, and specifically homes for rent to own properties, you can go to our website, bergencountyrenttoown.com. And we have properties that we have access to that are off market that we can actually, help match you with the right properties depending on your bedroom count that you're looking for, bathroom count, your needs, location. We have properties in Bergen County, Hudson County, Essex County, throughout Union County, throughout New Jersey, and also some areas in New York. So go to bergencountyrenttoown.com, and it's a free list. Just go ahead and access the information there. And if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. My email is ashradinetwork@gmail.com. And I really appreciate you guys being on the live with me. Look forward to sharing more with you. I hope that we can continue to expand and get more details here that will be beneficial to you. So till next time, look forward to seeing you guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you on the next live. Thank you.